might as well get started. So thanks everyone for joining our AI, machine learning, and data science innovation at AbaData. So this is kind of a back-to-back session where back will actually be in both sections. So we have Mann, and Andy, who is our data scientist, Andy Guevara. Yeah, sorry. But yeah, so they're pretty presenting to this. I'm going to kick it off. We didn't really have computers, programmable computers, until really the early 50s. Things have come a long way since then. Before that, it was everything was all done manually. But even then, in the early 50s, this is actually a picture of UNIVAC 1. And they were room-sized computers. Basically, it's only government organizations, big corporations, maybe educational institutions could actually afford to do like this. But this is kind of state of the art in the early 50s. And so I was going through this, the intro for this deck here, and I thought, I came across this picture of my great-grandpa in the early 50s. And this picture was taken roughly around the time that these computers actually became available. And so, he wasn't really a tech guy per se, but I don't think he could have envisioned where we'd be today with computers. And AI has really started to change things, and it's coming on at a really accelerating rate. So I thought, let's have a little bit of fun with this picture. So I use a commercially available AI tool, and you may have seen some of these out there, the text to video. So you basically take a still photo and you type in some text, and it'll actually generate a video. And so with this, I typed in the prompt, have the car behind the man, so you see it's like an old 50s car, maybe it's a truck, I don't know. But you can only see just a portion of it. It's a winter scene, he's got a Sunday vest on, there's snow on the ground. And so I wanted the video to do it, have the car that's behind the man, pull up to him, he gets in the car, he drives down the street. While the man gets in the car, the video turns from black and white to color, and at the same time, the scene turns from winter to summer. Let's see how that turned out. And you see the AI, it's not perfect, but you kind of imagine what the houses next to it would look like, possibly. And you turn from black and white into color. It's pretty amazing. And this technology is at its infancy right now. This is the worst it's ever going to be. It's really interesting. It's not perfect. He gets in and he's driving, except the steering wheel's on the other side of the car. So it's not perfect, but this is really interesting, and it's it kind of gives us a window into what we're doing at AbaData. We're not doing videos like this. We're doing other cool things that Matt will show us later on as text to report. But this is kind of like the transit, or like how computers kind of come about over the years. Like 50s room-sized computers. It wasn't even until the late 70s or even the early 80s. I didn't even have my first computer probably until 86 or 87 or something like that. I was only maybe 12 at the time. And it wasn't even until the mid-90s that we had the internet. And today we have generative AI, and it's accelerating at such a rapid pace. And I think society is really at the precipice of a major change. I believe this whole AI revolution is going to be bigger than the internet, bigger than personal computers. It's going to impact us in so many different ways. And so I think there is an opportunity in the meantime for you to kind of leverage and take all of these tools, do your job more efficiently. Really, AI is more accessible than it ever has been in the past. And it's moving fast, it's changing at a rapid rate. But you can really use it as a productivity tool. Obviously there's the ChatGPTs and those kind of tools out there. I'm always surprised to see when companies ignore these tools or even ban them. We've heard some of our competitors even banning the use inside their company. I think that's a great mistake to do that. Obviously there's things you need to be concerned about, like privacy of your information. You don't want that kind of data into the wild. But it's certainly, if it's done in a calculated fashion, I think that there's some really great productivity moves that we made. And so we have a few things we're going to show today. We can't show you everything we're working on, some of it's still in the skunk works, but it is a major source for innovation inside AbaData. A lot of the stuff we use is with publicly available information. We never do anything without your authorization. It involves like private data, such as like field ops or pipeline integrity applications. So, but we're going to have a lot more coming in that's available now, but also coming in the future. Different ways to work smarter, work faster, and that's coming. And with that, I'm going to pass this over to Matt. He's on our machine learning engineer team. He's from Regina, don't hold that against him, and he's going to walk you through this. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason, for the introduction. And while I am from Regina, I will say I did move to Calgary just 6 months ago now. So I'm converted. So today I have the privilege of talking about a couple of the things that I've been working on as a machine learning engineer here at AbaData. I've worked here for about a year and a half. Before that, I've been working in generative AI for multiple years, I think, going on 7 or 8 now. So it's pretty fun. We're going to start by talking about AI assistance in AbaData. This is one of the things I'm most excited about. So I'm excited to dive into that. After that, we're going to talk a little bit about finding DC pipes, but I hope that I can see you all at the next presentation, which will go more in depth on how we found DC pipes. And finally, thank you. Finally, we're going to be talking about digitization in AI. So let's start with AI assistance in AbaData. When I first started working at AbaData, I logged into the website and I was like, wow, there is so much going on this website. It's a huge service. There are hundreds of features, rich functionality, countless data sources. I was like, how am I ever gonna learn this website, let alone develop for it? And it was pretty awesome to see how many resources AbaData pours into helping people learn how to use the tool, into the support team, everything like that. We've always got people available to help you understand how to use AbaData most effectively. But when you have a question about AbaData, perhaps taking it to the support team is going to be a little bit of overkill. Maybe it's something as simple as, how do I stop drawing a polygon when I started? Or how do I delete a point in a polygon? Or how do I find a lat long location on the map without having to, kind of drag my mouse all the way there? For those simple questions, talking to the support team can feel like a little bit of overkill. But then you could also check out the user guide or other resources, but that can take a little bit of time. And we wanted to provide a solution to make it easier to use AbaData. So what we really want is we want a feature that can give you quick answers to the questions that you have. It'll give you quick tutorials for the tasks that you want to do. And it'll be conversational, so you can ask follow-up questions. For example, you might ask, how can I generate a report on pipelines? And then you might ask, well, what's this AER status filter? What are these different filters? You want something you can have a conversation with. On the right, I have an example of something you might ask, which is, how do I see my company's wells on the map? And instantly, it'll come back with an answer to tell you exactly how to do that within AbaData. So this is how we introduce the AbaData AI Assistant. I'm just going to talk for a moment about how we actually built the AI Assistant and how it's constantly improving. We use what's called an iterative knowledge base. So we start with resources and expert knowledge. So that's things like the user guide, a bunch of the experts on our team at AbaData, and we start with their knowledge. Then, here's the fun part, is that the AI takes all of that knowledge and condenses it down into its own form of knowledge base, a set of facts. And the way that it does this is it chooses which facts to update if it has the facts already, which facts to remove if it was wrong or outdated, and finally which ones to add. So then from that, the AI makes more questions and asks us to explore more features of AbaData. And then that leads to more resources, more expert knowledge, and the cycle continues over and over and over again. And the bot continues to ask questions, we continue to give it answers. And then eventually, theoretically, as time goes on, we're going to perfect our knowledge base on AbaData as a tool. But you can already use AbaData in AbaData right now. It's the little smart help button down at the bottom right. you can already use that to get help on your AbaData stuff. We want to move beyond chatting because in the last couple of years, AI has gotten incredible. And we want to leverage those AI advancements in order to help you use AbaData even better, to streamline all of your flows of how you use AbaData. So I have a couple examples of things you might want the AbaData AI assistant to do. The first might be just an explanation. What is Directive 13? Before working here, I had no idea what Directive 13 was, but of course, AbaData AI assistant, it's going to know what Directive 13 is, and all you want there is a nice explanation of what it is. But something else you might want, which is similar to the universal search feature right now, is you want it to find a well, a lat long location, anything like that. Instead of giving you a response of how to do that within AbaData, you kind of just want it to do it for you. So that's something that we're building into the AbaData AI assistant as well. You might want to ask, how do I jump to a certain lat long location? In this case, you don't want it to do it for you, you want to learn how to do it yourself in the future. So it'll give you two options. It will give you first an explanation and then the option for it to do it for you as a button. But this last part is the part that I'm most excited about. We want to add in to AI assistance in AbaData, we want to add in the ability to give you reports on your own data right there in the chatbot. So let's say, for example, you want to generate a report of your company's wells that produced condensate in 2021, ordered by the amount most to least. This is something that you can do in AbaData already through global reports, but we just wanted to make it easier to do all sorts of things without having to go through all of the filters and statuses and stuff like that. So with AI-driven reports, you get new flexibility. First of all, it's natural language reporting, which means that you can just tell it exactly what you want, and it will come back in a couple seconds with the exact report that you want. Next, we can get novel data insights. So since it's so flexible in making queries, and it has such a deep knowledge of the database, you can ask for certain types of reports that you might not even have in AbaData already, or you might not know how to do in AbaData. For example, you might ask for condensate production in 2003 on wells that were then abandoned in 2004. You can also get insights into your data, flexible insights into your data with our other tools such as field ops, equipment management, and our pipeline integrity product triage. So for example, you might ask, what are my company's top 10 highest risk uncoded pipelines? So here I have a video demonstrating how the AI reports would work. This is in real time, or not real time, but this is a video I took that is not sped up or anything like that, where I asked about that Synovus report of 2021 wells that produce condensate from most of the east. So it's going to come back, tell you it's generating the report, and then within seconds, it's going to have a report ready for you to download. And there it is, just that fast. So the possibilities for this are endless. You can get any types of reports that you want as fast as you want them, and you can track those reports as you saw in the UI. You'll also be able to look at your previous conversations and anything like that. So that's pretty sweet. So that's AbaData AI Assistant, AbaData. We're going to be rolling out those features in the next couple months, and it's going to be very exciting. And I hope that you guys all find great use cases beyond my wildest imaginations for what you might use for that. For the next topic, I'd like to talk about BC pipelines. Like I said, I'm not going to dive into this too much because I'm going to be diving into it much more in the next presentation. That's right in this room as well. But I will go over it quickly because it is some AI and machine learning stuff that we're doing here. So BC Pipelines was missing a lot of historical pipeline paths, but in this project we were able to find over 16,000 of those pipeline paths. So here is the current public data that is available publicly, and here is the BC pipelines that we have now in comparison. So in order to do this, we utilized various different methods. We took down satellite imagery, we used machine learning modeling, regulatory data, we use advanced pathfinding algorithms, and to ensure that accuracy of this data set, we use rigorous human evaluation. But like I said, you'll have to find out more in the next presentation. Finally, the last thing I want to talk about is using AI to digitize data. So you might have a lot of PDFs, schematics, facility schematics, those sorts of things, and they do not exist outside of AbaData right now, or sorry, they do not exist inside of AbaData right now. I hope they exist outside of AbaData. The one thing that we can do is we can use advanced computer vision models to read in those PDFs, those schematics, detect the symbolism, and put it into a version of schematics that we can use inside of AbaData, so that instead of having to manually digitize your schematics, we'll just be able to do it for you on the fly as soon as possible. And the other thing that we can do is scalable form digitization. So if you wanted to join, let's say, field ops, and you have 200 PDFs from different vendors on different things, on different inspection forms, you can just send those over to us, and we would be able to use AI to fill in all of the forms that you would fill on field ops and all the inspections that you would fill in on field ops. We get the AI to do it for you so that you can start nice and fresh with all of your data already in field ops. Cool. So next I'll introduce Andy Guevara, and he's going to give us, he's a data scientist here at AbaData. He's going to talk about that.
Hi everyone, my name is Andy, as Matt mentioned. I'm a data scientist here at AbaData, and I'm going to be talking about a couple projects we've been working on. The first one is in pipeline integrity, and it's about creating a pipeline internal corrosion scoring system using machine learning. And then the second one is about creating pipeline history records so that we can go back in time and check how pipelines have changed over time. So I'll jump onto the first one, and I'll start by defining what internal corrosion is for those of you who may not know this. Internal corrosion is the deterioration of a pipeline's internal surface due to a corrosive substance inside of the pipeline. And here at AbaData, we have a pipeline integrity product called Triage. And what Triage does is it provides pipeline assessments to help companies minimize pipeline failures. And one of the unique features of Triage is that it provides an internal corrosion score based on well performance. So what is this score? What this score tells us is what is the influence of the wells in likely spill in pipeline due to internal corrosion. Or we're asking ourselves, what is the relationship between pipeline spills and well operations? But first, you may be asking yourselves, how do we know which pipelines are connected to which wells? And the answer to that is that here at AbaData, we've been working on a connectivity network that tells us which assets are connected to which. And for this case, it's wells and pipelines. So we can use this data as shown here to connect wells and pipelines. And this is useful for us so we can go back and check which wells were connected to those pipelines at the time of spills. So now we look at a well, and we can see some data on this well, and we can see its production. I don't know if you can see the red lines, the vertical lines. Those are the spills that happen in the downstream pipeline of this well. And you can look at this, and we have another sample here. And are you able to find any patterns here, anything that may lead you to think that something is causing these spills? And the answer to that is probably not. It's hard to find patterns just by looking at a couple samples. So that's why we have machine learning. And machine learning is very good at finding patterns in large amounts of data. And that's what we've done. We've collected a lot of data, and we've collected spill data. We've collected more than 160,000 spills that came from internal corrosion. And these spills start from 1990 to 2025. And this for Alberta and Saskatchewan. And since we have the connectivity network, we're able to grab wells as well. So we grab more than 40,000 wells. And the well data we grabbed as well that we're using is production, the pool of these wells, distances, for example, from surface to downhole. And now that we have all these pieces that we can use, we have our pipeline spills, we have our well data, we use our connectivity network to match or map the pipelines and the wells that are connected to those pipelines. And we use this data to train a machine learning model that learns the patterns in this data and tells us what the relationship is between these spills and the operation of these wells. And so the input for this model is well data, and what we get from it is the internal corrosion score. And what this score tells us is the likelihood of this well causing the spill in a pipeline downstream of that well. And we can use this model to flag wells that may cause an issue in pipelines, and we can do this for the entire province in minutes. So on the left-hand side, you can see a heat map of all the wells in Alberta. And on the right side, you can see the ones that we flagged to be likely to cause a spill in pipelines, in the pipeline downstream of that well. And if you have any questions about this, please hold them until the Q&A. And now the next project I'm going to talk about is the pipeline history records. And many of you have seen this before. And what this is when you click, when you're in AbaData, and you click on a pipeline, you see this, and this is the regulator data. And this tells you a few things. It tells you who owns this pipeline, the from and to locations of this pipeline. It tells you status. It tells you the substance going through this pipeline. But what if you want to ask yourself, has this pipeline always been owned by this company? And how many times has it changed this licensee or the company that owns or the company that this pipeline is registered under? Or what if you want to ask yourself, when did this pipeline go from construction to operation? And just by using the latest regulator data, there's no reliable way to find this out. Because as you may know, this data is posted monthly, and the one that came before gets wiped out. So what we've done is we've collected regulator data all the way back from 2006, and we processed this data to be able to generate a history for these pipelines, so that we can be able to go back and check how these pipelines have changed. And we've collected more than 42 million records from these pipelines, from 2006, like I said before, till now. And after processing this data, we generated more than 1 million records for more than 400,000 pipelines. And we update this data monthly so that we keep this data as live as possible, and we keep generating records and keep track of how these pipelines are changing. So, like I said before, we created a history for these pipelines where we keep track of changes in these pipelines. And we track things like ownership, status, H2S, substance, and many more data points. So remember the first pipeline I showed you? Here's the history for that pipeline. I'll go from left to right, and we can see that this pipeline went from construction to operation in November of 2014. It changed the licensee for the first time in April of 2015, and then it changed again in April of 2017. And then before August of 2022, the substance going into this pipeline was coming from a well. In August of 2022, this changed, and now the pipeline starts from a pipeline. And then lastly, the last change in licensee or the company this pipeline is registered under changed again in 2024. So now we know that we can look at these pipelines independently, and we can look and see how each of these pipelines are changing. But we can also ask ourselves questions to make to get a better understanding of the bigger picture. So we can ask things like, how many times in the past 10 years have pipelines changed their licensee? And we can answer that question. We can see, for example, that 2017 was a busy year, and then 2020, for obvious reasons, not so much. 2023 wasn't so busy, and we can look deeper into that. Or we can ask ourselves another question. We can ask which companies were the most involved in these changes. And we can ask ourselves what were the top 10 for the last 10 years. And we can also answer that question. And we can see that the first one is by far, if you add up 2 and 3, there's a big difference still. And we can find these patterns, and we can use this data to learn things about the bigger picture. So how can you find this data? You can use it today. You go into AbaData, you click on a pipeline, and then you click on the More Info tab, and then you click on the History sub-tab, and you should be able to see the history of this pipeline that you selected. And that's all I got for today. If you have any questions about what Jason talked about, or Matt, or myself, we're happy to answer them.
Yes, we'll open up the floor. Steve, if you don't mind, any
Check.
Yeah, I can talk. Is it history only for Alberta or for BC too? For now, it's only Alberta. Okay. Down the road now.
You know, that's a really good question. For the first version of it, we did the Alberta data. We do have data for BC and Saskatchewan going back. So this is kind of a pilot project we were working on. So the answer is probably that.
So I assume for your AI assistant helper that you were using another company's large language model. I'm wondering which large language model you were using?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the start of the project, we were mostly relying on OpenAI, but we obviously know that this could be a contingency if we wanted to switch off. And so the back end of it is actually flexible. We can actually switch between using OpenAI, but if they have an outage, we might switch to Gemini or Grok or something like that.
So I guess my second question to that is, how do you internally make sure that there's not hallucinations happening for the large language model providing inaccurate data?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, baked into any chatbot, hallucinations can be something that happens, of course. When it comes to the actual reporting, when it comes to giving inaccurate information, we keep that to a minimum by, having this extensive knowledge base about AbaData, of course. But when it comes to reporting, we actually verify and vet each of the reports before they go out by running them, and the AI will also say what it expects as the result. And if it doesn't approve that this is the expected result that the user is asking for, it will just completely vet it.
I'll maybe just add to that. So the reports themselves are not actually generated by AI. So what we're doing is it's translating English into queries that runs against the database. And it's only available on a limited subset of the tables inside the database. So it's basically just taking English and making SQL Server queries with that information. Basically setting the filters that you want, if you want to filter based on company or whatever. And we make that transparent too, what the filters are with the reports.
Will you be tasking the AIs logging produce cyclicity?
For which
For reduced cyclicity related to production?
I think
You know, we have a lot of stuff in the Skunk Works right now. You know, that is something that we've thought about. We haven't done too much with that just yet, but we are exploring lots of different areas, the ways that we can apply this technology.
On your, saying your, the full schematics, when you say you're using AI to like read them in, yeah, how long is that process taking? Is it a pretty robust thing? What is like actual to AI interpretation look like as far as, you know?
Yeah, so it's a constantly evolving and improving system right now. When it comes to reading in a full schematic, it can take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes at present, which is the model needs to do a lot of thinking between all the different symbolisms and stuff, and there's a lot of non-standard symbolism that can take place. Right now, the way that it's working right now is it gets you about 90% of the way, so that it just takes most of the brunt work off, and then you just have to make small corrections and that sort of thing. But with it taking 5 to 10 minutes per schematic, that is able to do it in parallel. So you could do 500 schematics all at once, and it would still take 5 to 10 minutes.
And so that we also have some tools where you can overlay the existing schematic over the ones that we developed. And you can quickly see at a glance you know, where it's made mistakes, if it has or not. It's actually working really well right now. So, but we do give those tools to help verify it once it's in work.
Has any of your clients thought to do any big data information to validate your speaking out approach?
So that's not my area of expertise. So we do things like take ILIs and other information like that and incorporate them into the system and to all of the scores. I would have to put you in touch with our pipeline integrity guys. I'm a computer programmer by trade, so it's not really my area of expertise, but we do similar things to that. So
Yeah, passes.
Since we have a lot of data since 1990, then we try to validate that model using a part of the data we have for spills. And yeah, it has high accuracy, but for sure we have to keep testing.
On the AI chats on the system, do you have a limit to prompts when you're generating like questions for the assistants? Do you have like prompt limits? Also, the other question is on the pipeline records. So aside from the data that you get from the AbaData and regulator websites or API, do you have any other sort of data sources that you use for the records, or you basically depending fully on the end regulator?
It's purely just the regulator data. We process that data. We rely on some, or we use some spatial data as well, either from the regulator or not, to keep track of pipelines that may have changed in license number, for example, but remain the same pipeline physically, and then we can merge the history and not lose and have the history in two parts of our database, but mostly just regulated.
Would you mind repeating your question to the person?
Yeah, so we have like unique three problems.
Limits?
Yeah, you understand like weakness.
Yeah, when it comes to limits, we don't have any limits as it stands right now. I think if we were to have like some huge influx of data or some huge influx of demand for it, then we might set limits, but I don't see that in the cards as it stands. I think that's part of the AbaData situation.
5 minutes.
Okay.
I think we have a few minutes left, maybe another couple questions if anyone has anything.
In terms of the number of use cases you guys are testing, what's your getting to deployment, right?
For like AI tech tools, well, AbaData, we call it. The AI help is available today. EC pipelines, we're rolling that out. Right, like I think it's out for some people right now already.
Yeah.
And the facility schematics. you've been using that. Is anyone using that in production yet?
I don't think anyone's using it in production, but it is in the works, and we're getting to the kind of perfection stages right now, just perfecting it.
So, you know, and it's a fast moving field too. So we've been working on things even up until yesterday. We're still working on it. So it's kind of, you know, talk to us in a year and we have a lot more things incorporated inside that. Like it's a really fast changing field. One more question.
Over here. Steve?
Yeah, I'm just curious to know that when we give the data to OpenAI, is it encrypted or is there any risk of data being stolen? And also, can the same data be used by AI to answer other questions? Like if I was to ask AI a question, can I rely on your data to answer my question?
Yeah, we extensively, obviously we're any API calls that we make, we've vetted that any model provider or anything like that, we've made sure that they have a service that would protect your data as much as we have a service to protect your data as well. Of course, it's all opt-in. If you're asking for reports from field ops, then obviously you've given your data to us to manage, and we're going to manage it with the utmost integrity. We obviously will also be encrypting it via SSL and HTTPS on the back end whenever we're sending any data. But we don't actually send any of your data. We just take a look at the we look at the database schema that we created, and we make queries from there. And those queries are what return the data. Get links from there.
Though you kind of stole my thunder there, is basically no confidential or private customer data to be essential. These models like OpenAI or research models right now, it's all just publicly available information, stuff from the regulator browser pipelines that can. But yeah, no, it's but thanks for coming to the session. So we're gonna have another one right away. Ask me to take that off. And 145, we're talking about BC pipelines. This is a really interesting project. We go into more detail about how we actually obtain BC pipelines and how we have human and to verify them. So we'll see you in a few minutes.